300 laps isn't enough to decide this race. We need 301. We're going to New Hampshire, to the New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the Mobil 1 301. We've got all your favorite bets for you on the other side here on the back road. So come on down with us, won't you?
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checker flag. That's all this race is.
Stay from the stage.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Back Road. It's In Between Media's NASCAR betting show. Elliot Hicks and Rod Villagomez here with you. We're going to chat about the New Hampshire Motor Speedway this week, the Mobil 1 301 for the Cup Series, as the playoffs in the Cup Series move on to the round of 12. How's it going tonight, Rod? Good to see you, man.
Fantastic, man. Yeah, definitely the round of 12. We've had a lot of excitement so far in the playoffs, and New Hampshire has not been this late in, I don't know if it's ever been this late in the season, and it's going to be interesting to watch this as an actual playoff race because it's going to be fun. This 301, the one extra lap always makes a difference, Elliot.
Yeah, shout out to, I think it was Lennox Industrial Tools when they took over the race sponsorship. They bumped it up to 301 because they wanted to add the magic to the race that you could add by having their tools in their toolbox. Something, I don't know. It's been lost to time at this point, but yeah, it should be a good weekend up there in New Hampshire. Probably the latest it's ever been. You're right, but it did traditionally used to kick off the chase for the Cup back when it was the chase for the Cup. But yeah, kicking off the round of 12 this time. And honestly, some might say you chop it off the bottom four. This is the real chase for the Cup starting in this round of 12 here. We'll break it all down, but first we'll take a look in the rear view, talk Bristol, and break down all of the playoff standings. Then we'll break down New Hampshire and the horizon forecast, tell you some things to expect and things and the trend nature of everything, and then give you our parking garage props for the Cup and the Truck Series. Xfinity, I think it's their last off week, and I think from then on, we've got triple headers the rest of the way. Maybe the Trucks takes another week off. But either way, fun time of the year and a fun time to hop in the IBT Racing family. Gives you our full weekly NASCAR betting cards for myself and Seth. Entry into the memorabilia giveaways, of which I got to holler at Seth to fire up one of those. It's been a while. Gives you access to the exclusive weekly betting model, which has helped us a lot the last couple of weeks especially. And you get to join the conversation. I mean, that's the best part. You get to chat with myself, with Seth, with Rob, with Ryan from My Fantasy Race, and all the great people in there. And if you're kind of burnt out on the racing, I get it. It's a long season. Maybe, you've tailed my bets too much and they haven't turned out very well for you. We got the IBT football family over there too. Same thing, memorabilia giveaways, exclusive Q&A Discord show. You get to hop in the conversation with all of our great analysts over there. And I still need to throw in a little banter I've been meaning to. Full weekly NFL and college football betting cards for those analysts, as well as entry into the touchdown contest. I got to get a look at how those standings are doing. I'm a non-participant, of course, but whoever's winning over there, shout out to whoever is in front in the touchdown contest there. Shout out as well to everyone listening on the audio version on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review if you'd like. 101.5 FM, talking West Tennessee. Hope your live bets went well last Saturday night. You can catch that on 8 p.m. On Saturday nights. And the easiest thing to do, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment your picks for the weekend, the links to all that fun stuff we were just talking about in the episode description. Shout out to everyone rolling along with us so far. Marcus had a great week. Christopher Bell gets the late race victory at Bristol. Shouting out who's the pick to win, and he's shouting out Christopher Bell. Good pick this week. We'll talk a lot about the 20 car as the show rolls on. Seth checking in, riding on pit road for this show. Yep, he's a behind the wall guy this weekend. Busy week at In Between Media. Shout out to everyone checking out that content as well. We got Nick in the comments as well, thinking Hemrick and Bell. We got some bets on those guys this week. We give you a spoiler. Bell pick does seem way too easy, and the odds are a little low, Stan. 3-1 where you can find Bell at most books. Definitely a little light. Logano this week, though, there could certainly be some value there. Rod, I've talked a lot about In Between and everything like that, but we got to shout out your ventures as well. The NASCAR Gambling Podcast and So You Like Sports being probably your two more important other things you got going on. We always appreciate you taking some time away from that to hop on the back road, but definitely want everyone to support over there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to do it is just, like I said, look up the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. 678, Elliot. We just passed episode 678. We're on pace. We're on pace to hit 700 just after the season ends. So, yeah, it's been a hell of a ride so far. 3 great seasons, and it's just not slowing down at all. And then So You Like Sports has been on a little bit of a hiatus because, of course, as we know, it's all It's all NFL right now. It's all NASCAR right now. So once that dies down, I'll be back with more fun stuff over there as well.
Yeah, man, I don't blame you. But hey, lots of great content up there. You can go back and look on. I don't know if it'll help with your current bets, but gives you an idea of what's going on over there. Speaking of looking back, let's take a look back in the rear view and talk Bristol. So it was a nice little triple header weekend from the last great Coliseum. Truck Series saw Lane Riggs win his way into the round of 8. His teammate Chandler Smith, though, more trouble for the 38 truck. Going to be very difficult for them to make it through this week. We'll talk more about that later. On the Xfinity side, Erik Almirola claims his second victory of 2025, and the playoff leaderboard really shook up behind him, as we'll talk about later as well. Cup Series, though, the main event of the weekend, and it certainly was. We found out early in the race the tire chaos of spring 2024 was back. Tires cording, wearing out very quickly. Goodyear having to release the second set. It was a wild night for sure, and tires made all the difference. A late race caution. Christopher Bell, one of the guys who had some fresh sets, holds off a heck of a run from Brad Keselowski at the end, gives Joe Gibbs Racing a round of 16 sweep, and is Bell's first victory since, I believe, Phoenix in the spring, the third of 3 wins in a row. It had been that long, surprising, since Bell had been to victory lane. Heck of a win there for Bell, and the tire chaos certainly had to have been fun to watch for you as well.
So when you talk about Bell, I had this feeling as soon as he made a fuss the week before, right? Why am I the slowest out of these guys? Why am I the one that's suffering the most out of the playoff drivers for JGR? I had that feeling, right? I knew Marcus was going to be right eventually again. And sure enough, I was like, this is going to be the week. And I did say that was one of the biggest bets that I hit on the week was Christopher Bell at plus 850. 10-1 boost also on Caesars for those of you that are out there. But it was like, I just knew it, and then when everything started to just go sideways for a lot of different people, I was like, this is a race that Bell can end up winning. And boy, did he prove that he was fast and he wanted it. I mean, above all, Elliot, I think we just saw his want to, right, out of this race and the urge for him to just get it done now. So there's no question later.
Yeah, I agree. And he was very frustrated after the Gateway race, like you alluded to, upset that they ran 7th with the best you-know-what-in car on the track and was able to run first with maybe not the best car on the track. Either way, though, Bell was able to grab the win there. Eliminated from the Cup Series playoffs, the 48 of Alex Bowman, the 3 of Austin Dillon, the 88 of Shane Van Gisbergen, and the 21 of Josh Berry. And it really held true to what we've always seen in the round of 16, that it's not even necessarily that you have to go out there and put out great runs. It is just you need to be one of the teams that avoids shooting themselves in the foot. And I mean, I don't remember anything that really stood out with the 3 shooting themselves in the foot, but certainly moments where the 48, 88, and 21, especially poor Josh Berry, DNF in all 3 races, they shot themselves in the foot and it cost them.
Well, and I think I had said it earlier, and I'm probably talking about it a little bit later on in the show, but with Josh Berry, winning that race may have been earlier in the season one of the worst things that happened to that 21 team because the pressure started to be on them. And then you saw in the playoffs, it just completely unraveled. So now the pressure's off the 21 team. They could just go out and run races again because, look, we saw it, right? Josh Berry had some speed earlier in the season. Everybody's saying, oh, look at that 21 car. There's some top 10s. There was the win. It looked promising, right? But as soon as he won that race, it just felt like after that, it just started to go downhill. And then, of course, once the playoffs started, I mean, that's when it completely unraveled for him. But you got to hand it to the 21 team for coming in and being competitive this year early on. And maybe now that the pressure's off, they'll feel it again. But yeah, I mean, it's got to suck to be Josh Berry right now, just knowing, look, man, we had a shot and the team couldn't get it through.
Yeah, it's just so tough to build that consistency, especially when the pressure's on. We saw it with the 48 team, a team that could not afford bad runs on tracks that Bowman has been bad at in the past. They had some bad runs, didn't work out. Austin Dillon, like I said, it just was not a very memorable playoff run. He showed the speed that he shows everywhere other than Richmond, and that'll knock you out pretty early. Shane Van Gisbergen, it shows, these were hard tracks in the first round of the playoffs here. He had as much of a cushion as he could have gotten. He only could have got one other road course win, and it still was not even close to enough. It was some rough times there for SVG, and we already talked about Berry. Some of it was incidents not really of his own fault, and some of it incidents that, really it's harsh to blame any of them on him. Maybe Darlington, he washes up a little early, but got taken out by Chase Elliott, and then just the unfortunate rubber fire there. But either way, we know all 4 of these guys, as well as everyone not in the playoffs, going to try to come back ever stronger, just like I need to on the betting card. 2 weeks in a row after my big Darlington win, I've just been down just barely. Four units placed, you win 3 of them back, and you just need to recapture that one. I was able to hit the Ty Gibbs top 10. He should have ran a lot better than 10th in that race, but ends up P10 in the 54. Brad Keselowski top 4. That's one that I kind of forgot throughout the night that I even placed. And then it hits with the late race P2 there. And over 9.5 drivers to finish on the lead lap at -110 also got me some winnings there. And on the Xfinity side, Carson Kvapil with the top 5 was not looking like it was going to hit most of the race. He was able to get up toward the front at the end and was able to hit that nice little 3-1 that I had a good portion of my card on that one. Not quite Austin Green top 10 levels, but pretty solid there. Any other bets you haven't already shouted out that hit from your sayings over the week?
Definitely hit the rigs. That was a fun one. I hit the rigs truck series. Like I said, I knew that was going to be the one. It was either rigs or Heim, and it definitely ended up being rigs. So absolutely love that one. I did also have the Carson Kvapil top 5 as well. So that was good. I had Sheldon Creed actually over Austin Hill. Got that one as well. The only thing I missed in Xfinity was picking Love as an outright. I don't know anybody could have seen Amarola coming from that one. So, whatever. That's whatever. But yeah, Xfinity was fun. That was a good one. And then of course, as far as the Cup Series, like I said, Bell 10-1, had Bell top 5 as well. Had Busch over Barry. I mean, that one definitely hit. And then Zane Smith, I took him over 22.5. So that means to finish better than 22.5. I did not see a top 5 or 3 run out of Zane Smith, man. I wish we would have climbed that ladder a little bit more, but boy, did Zane Smith come in hot last week.
Yeah, it was a great run for the 38 car. Good shout out to him, and glad it made you some money too. I think that I saw a stat that other than Gibbs, no one ran more laps in the top 10. Maybe it was top 15, but I think it was top 10 than Zane Smith. We've seen that out of a couple of the front row drivers this year. Gregson had a couple of top 10s in a row, I feel like, and we've seen it with Zane Smith really having some speed at points this year. Again, we'll break down more front row motorsports in the winter. We got to talk about the current standings. We'll talk more about some of the other drivers in the playoffs and how their weeks went in a moment. First, we'll briefly touch on some of the fast lap news for the week. Nothing too big, thankfully. No ask court or no suspensions or no anything really to break down. Well, we do have suspensions. On Denny Hamlin's pit crew, his Jackman and his changer will be out 2 weeks, but it'll be the 2 weeks following this race because you can defer those suspensions now. So those suspensions will take place at Kansas and the Roval for his normal Jackman and tire changer after his wheel fell off, causing one of the yellows last week. Was not the week I expected at Denny Hamlin. Seth and I both had, I think I had a top 3, Seth had a top 5, and it just was not a normal Bristol for neither the 11 nor the 5. In the truck series side, Grant Enfinger has a new crew chief, Michael Shelton, stepping in over there. That's kind of interesting to have your crew chief leave in the middle of the playoffs, especially a guy who'd been with Enfinger for a while. But yeah, just a weird situation over there. Haven't really heard kind of why that happened yet. We'll have to break that down. Outside of NASCAR, official that David Malukas going to the Penske number 12 IndyCar ride on a multi-year deal. And in dirt racing, shout out Seth for reminding us of this story. Rico Abreu teaming up with Tony Stewart Racing sprint car team. Arguably just as big of news there. Of course, Rico Abreu, a great sprint car racer, tried the NASCAR thing for a while, didn't work out. Tony Stewart Racing had Donnie Schatz forever, a top team there. They're moving their operations from the World of Outlaws, the traditional top-tier dirt series, to the High Limit Series, co-owned by Kyle Larson. That feels like a pretty big shift in dirt racing. I don't know if you have any extra commentary on that, Rod, but feel free to tap in on any one of these subjects here. It'll make for some interesting things to watch next year, especially those couple of ride changes.
What's interesting is how big the High Limits series should end up getting, right? Because we've started to hear more and more about it now, and maybe Kyle Larson being a part of it almost every single week is making it that way. But I mean, or maybe it's just on my radar. To be honest with you, I'm not sure which is which, because I know that I'm hearing more about it, which means either it's getting better at advertising, or I'm just paying more attention to it. But it's been fun to watch the High Limit stuff and kind of keep an eye on some of these drivers that we may end up seeing eventually in, a truck series ride or whatever, because, we're starting to see guys like Corey Day, right, get on Kyle Larson's radar for that type of stuff. So we'll see what kind of a breeding ground this becomes for NASCAR at any point.
Yeah, and I mean, my goodness, we've seen the success. Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell, arguably two of the best drivers in the Cup Series right now, coming from dirt. People are high on Corey Day. We've even seen, I think David Gravel before COVID was going to hop over and try the full-time NASCAR thing, but didn't work out over there because of that. Looking at some comments here, and I'll take my base graphic off. Apologies for the behind scenes there. TK, I mean, this is why I shout out Rod for coming on, doing it back-to-back today, like Bell was trying to do this week. Seth asking if Stan is back on Bet365. We talked about how he had been banned from Bet365 by placing some massive units on a couple of not to make the championship 4 bets there. Turns out I'm not completely banned. They're willing to let me bet $3.14 on a NASCAR bet recently. Those are more my unit sizes. I know those are far from the 87.5 units you had on that SVG bet, I believe it was. Top 10 on Zane Smith, 15-1. Very happy to see him do well. Nice young driver and somebody that, we're a lot happier when we make money on him too, when he runs well. All right, let's break down some of the playoff standings here. The Cup Series starting off their round of 12 this week. They've got 3 left. At the top of the board, Denny Hamlin is 26 to the good. William Byron, 24 to the good. Larson, 24 to the good as well. Christopher Bell, plus 20. Ryan Blaney, plus 19. These are your guys, your bona fide championship contenders. They did more than they needed to do in the opening rounds. Blaney with some really good runs. Hamlin picking up a victory. Byron and Larson at least recovering from poor runs at Darlington to still keep their advantage there. And, of course, Chris Bell, the favorite this week, and then getting the win last week. These guys probably in good shape to get to the round of 12, but you just got to avoid those incidents.
Yeah, and we've seen some major incidents out of these playoff drivers week in and week out. And you got to be scared if you're Kyle Larson, though. You really do, because now the margin for error gets slimmer and slimmer as you progress through these playoffs. And, you may build yourself up a cushion, but we see how quickly it can evaporate and how you could be on the wrong end of the cut line even after one race. So I think, as comfortable as you may feel for some of these guys at the top, if you're Kyle Larson, you might be reevaluating a lot of things and going back to the drawing board. And maybe Elliot just trying to put together just clean runs, right? Maybe not worry about winning so much as just finishing well each part of these playoff rounds.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there on Larson. And Byron is almost somebody to be a little worried about too. I know he's had some decent runs, some P11s. His most recent top 10 finish was Watkins Glen. That's dating back about a month and a half now. Definitely some of those top Hendrick guys, they're glad they have that cushion because otherwise they'd be down more so in this range that we see this mid-tier in. We talked about Blaney at plus 19. Chase Briscoe plus 10. Chase Elliott plus 5. Bubba Wallace plus 1. Austin Cindric minus 1. Cindric was a guy who ran better than I expected. Bubba Wallace, I was almost expecting this to be the team to go out there, have a good playoff run. But even with Briscoe and Elliott, Chase having the one regular season win, whether you're talking about Briscoe or Elliott, they both had one regular season win. Plus 10 and plus 5, though, that is a cushion that can evaporate in an instant. And that just shows how important racking up the playoff points in the regular season really is.
Yeah. And again, like you said, just when you look at these guys, you expect them all to perform, especially the Elliots of the world, but he hasn't been performing all that well lately. Byron, summer slump may have extended. Who knows? Like Briscoe and all these JGR drivers, as good as they've been performing, all it takes is for a couple of bad races. Saw Denny Hamlin after he won. It just sort of evaporated after that as far as were they taking their foot off of the gas through the rest of the playoff rounds because they knew they were secured? Who knows? But, it just, if you take your foot off too much, then you could find yourself, like I said about Kyle Larson, on the wrong end of it. And you don't want to do that. Like you want to go in with momentum and, JGR is right now, but will that hold? Will Junior Motorsports, will Hendrick Motorsports figure out a way to close the gap on these guys?
And JRM the Cup, still waiting for it. That'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, both Chase Elliott and Austin Cindric extraordinarily lucky that they were not the guys who shot themselves in the foot in the earlier races in that round, because both of them end up with some pretty poor finishes, but able to advance based on how they ran and how others did not run so well in the round of 16. It's not a luxury you normally get in the round of 12. It's put up or shut up time for sure. And that's definitely the case for the 4 drivers below the cut line. As I mentioned, Cindric -1, Logano at -2, Chastain also at -2, Reddick at -3. All guys that have shown a little bit of speed, and they're very slim margins. These points can move around so much. One good run here at New Hampshire, you can turn that -3 for Tyler Reddick, who's finished 6th in the last 2 New Hampshire races, into a +23 very quickly, as he did at Darlington. Logano, a guy who we were a little worried about, maybe still a little worried about, mainly because it's not his even year magic. And with Chastain, though, I don't think they had mid-teens finishes all through that first round. That'll get you through the first round. It will not get you through the second round.
Yeah, no. And for Tyler Reddick too, how disappointing is it to go from the regular season champion last season to, having to figure out how to get through the next round of the playoffs. I mean, you bought yourself a little bit of space to get through this one, but you don't have any more mulligans left, and you have to perform, especially sitting there at the bottom of the rankings. I know 3 points below the cut line is not panic time, but boy, it sure feels like it at this point when you're not running as well as your teammate. You're watching Bubba Wallace actually turn in some really good finishes over the last few weeks, and you've been sort of out to lunch. Yeah, I mean, reality check hits quickly.
Yeah, and with Reddick, -3 does not sound like much. For Chastain, -2 does not sound like much. But for Reddick in his position, you have to pass 3 guys just for the privilege of having the stress of being on the cut line. And with everyone turning it up, running well in the playoffs, especially as the rounds go through, that gets tougher and tougher. I don't know if we want to do on the spot predictions here. I don't think I have them. So we'll just move on to the Xfinity Series points and save us that particular stress. We're not putting ourselves on the cut line here. We're at a big points cushion, I certainly hope, and hopefully we'll be that way in the books too. The Xfinity Series just started their playoffs at Bristol, so they've got 2 more left in their round of 12. Connor Zilic +85, so he basically just needs to start and he'll clinch. Allgaier +53, Sam Mayer +35, Carson Kvapil at +16. All those guys really did themselves favors with some pretty solid runs there at Bristol. Mayer almost winning the race toward the end there, getting passed by Creed, not quite being able to have it for Almirola. Zilic ran up front for a lot of that race. Carson Kvapil ending up getting the top 5, still searching for that win. But right now, I don't think he needs a win. I think just consistent runs will keep that one car and the rest of these guys above the cut line.
Yeah, JRM, like I said, just absolutely dominant in the Xfinity Series this season. Zilic, until further notice, right? You just got to expect that he's going to carry himself through all the way, and nobody is really slowing him down too much. I know Justin Allgaier has been nipping at his heels. Sam Mayer has taken a few shots at it as well, but I mean, overall, this is Zilic's show right now, and until he makes a big enough mistake to knock himself off of the top of the podium, I think you just have to assume that he's going to win, maybe not out, but at least the entirety of the season. He'll take home the championship. But yeah, I mean, this is all just kind of a foregone conclusion until we see him hoist the championship trophy, because that's how good this kid has been lately. And it's just, if you try to downplay it and make yourself sound like the smartest man in the room because you're like, well, Connor Zilic is not really going to, then you're just kind of being silly, because he's been that good and you can't deny it.
Yeah, I mean, it really feels like he's won everything but the title at this point. We'll see if it works out for the 88 to keep advancing. I want to give a special shout out to these 2 guys in the bracket here, or in the point standings. Harrison Burton putting himself at +9, Brandon Jones at +8. They were both guys who were kind of hovering around the cut line. Burton, I think, at the very bottom of the standings there, right above Hill, who had no playoff points. Goes out there, I think they ran 6th. They definitely ran top 10. I don't remember exactly where, but great run for AM Racing. +9, ahead of as many drivers as we'll talk about, is a pretty good place to be for a team that a lot of people didn't expect to be in the playoffs. And Brandon Jones, one of those guys, the JRM run was not good for him, showing that the JGR equipment definitely suits him better.
He definitely likes it. I mean, being back there has kind of been a revolution for him, because you think about it this way, right? When you're at JRM, you're with Justin Allgaier. You're at the time, you were with Sammy Smith. You had these guys around you that were a little more heralded. He is Sammy Smith, but you're with now it's Connor Zilic and Carson Kvapil have X'd out whoever else was there before him. But Brandon Jones, right? You were Brandon Jones. So all these guys, they just sort of outshone you. And so that's where we're at here with this. But yeah, definitely a much better fit. And, look, for all the rest of them, like I said, they're just chasing JRM at this point.
And they clearly are in the standings too, but still some mixed of those teams in this bottom tier here. Sheldon Creed at +7, ran P2, still, what was that, his 85th runner-up finish or something in Xfinity. Taylor Gray at +3, Nick Sanchez -3, Jesse Love also -3. It was not the best night for Richard Childress Racing. Austin Hill is at -16. Sammy Smith had mechanical problems at -24. I like being at -3 more than I like -24. I think Love may have a good shot, but I feel like it's going to be really tough for Sanchez, Hill, and Sammy Smith to be able to climb out of this hole they've now put themselves in.
Well, Austin Hill didn't do himself any favors anyways by making himself lose all of his whatever he gained, right, playoff points-wise, because every time he starts a new round now, he starts from scratch and he starts below the cutoff line. So he literally has an uphill battle every single time he starts a new round. And, I think his luck is going to run out. I think whether or not you think that the punishment was justified, I think he probably wishes that it wouldn't have happened, and he probably should have had cooler heads prevail. But, that's the hole he put himself in, and now he's got to dig himself out each and every round. I think this might be the round where his luck runs out because there's so many strong competitors that I don't know that he's going to be able to win his way through. Because, like I said, beating Zilich is hard already. Beating Zilich and Allgaier is even harder. And if you're Austin Hill, you just haven't been able to do that lately. So, it's. I don't think this is the next round for him.
Yeah, man, and it just proves the point, too, of just how dumb it was to go and throw away our playoff points. If I'm not mistaken, he had 3 wins in the regular season. At least he had multiple, and that's almost getting to the point where it's enough playoff points to where, a -1 or a -6 looks a lot better than a -16 does. And putting yourself in those holes when it's kind of your own fault and you just know you're not going to run well in the first place, in the first race, not a good place to be. It's different for Sammy Smith, mechanical issue when you feel like you should have run better. Those things happen. They happen on the Cup side. They've happened on the truck side. Sanchez and Love at a -3. They still have a chance. There's still 2 races left to go in this round. The Truck Series does not have that luxury, though. 1 race to go in their round of 10. Both Corey Heim and Lane Riggs both have advanced via victories. Daniel Hemrick and Ty Majeski have to be feeling pretty good at +51 and +46. Grant Enfinger and Tyler Ankrum both at +29. Caden Honeycutt, 18 above the cut line. Raja Karuth, 14 above the cut line. And the Truck Series kind of having the same thing as the Cup first round. You make the mistakes, you are going to get knocked behind the 8 ball. Jake Garcia poled Bristol, but then had, I believe, mechanical issues, a crash or something along those lines. I wasn't watching the race. We were doing the show live while the race was on. So he's -14 now. And Chandler Smith, more issues for him as well at -24 and considering it a must win. This kind of is playing out like I expected. I thought Chandler Smith wasn't going to have the issues, might have been above Caruth there. Shout out to Raja for running as well as he needs to. Honeycutt running pretty well in the 52, rebounding from a spin at Darlington. Our guy Tyler Ankrum. I mean, I don't know if I even had high expectations for him, even with that big run of top 5s there. But +29 on the cut line in the first round, that'll help his team's confidence and his confidence more than likely making the next round here. Fingers crossed for him and anyone who might be betting him this weekend at New Hampshire. Enfinger, we'll have to see what happens with his new crew chief there. For Hemrick and Majeski, they just have to not crash this week. They'll be fine. And, of course, Hyman Riggs, already the luxury of advancing, and they'll look to do the same in the round of 8. I know I was throwing all the drivers at you. Any specific truck drivers that you want to single out before we move on?
This is a really, really obviously important race. It's hashtag analysis for Chandler Smith, right? Because this is the one where if he doesn't, I think if he doesn't win, he's not in. I know that mathematically you can come back from where he's at if you just win a couple stages and, if you finish better than a couple of the other guys. But, I mean, look, man, it's been a rough playoff run for Chandler Smith. We're talking 30th or worst place finishes in the last couple of races already, issues and getting into it. And, you don't point race when you've had that much trouble, right? You literally just go out and try to win the race because that is the way that you secure yourself a spot in the next round. And this team, obviously, is talented enough to go do it. This driver is talented enough to go do it. So why not just go out and do it? Don't get cute with strategy, because you get cute with strategy and you finish 30th, right? You got to go out and win. And that's exactly what I think Chandler Smith has to do if he wants to go through and make it. But that's really the only guy that I think is probably feeling the heat, because, Caruth, yeah, he's above, but I think he's outperformed what him and his team were expecting to do this year. So maybe they'll try to push it, I'm sure, but not as hard as Chandler Smith's going to push it this week.
Yeah, Chandler Smith's certainly going to go all in, and the type of guy that'll ruffle some feathers for sure to advance there. Caruth feeling good in general. He's running the Hendrick Xfinity car at Kansas next weekend, so getting another chance there, he's got to be feeling good. Of course, we'll look ahead to all that as the time comes, but now it is time to start looking ahead to New Hampshire in the Horizon Forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
For this weekend's entry list, your typical 36 you expect in the Cup Series. No fun little back markers this week. In the Truck Series, 36 entries there as well. Brent Cruz, the young gun in the Tricon 1. Patrick Emmerling bought another ride in the Spire number 7. He's a modified guy, I think, so good luck to him up there. Christian Eckes back in the number 16, as he's been the last couple of weeks, getting some extra wheel time for McAnally. Weekend schedule starts tomorrow. Truck practice and qualifying 4:05 tomorrow. The practice will be 50 minutes, all trucks, none of that group stuff that we've had in the past. They'll get set for their 12:22 green flag on Saturday afternoon, the EJP 175 truck race on FS1. Stage lengths 55, 55, and 65. After that, and hey, there's modifieds on Flow at like 9:30 if you want to wake up early on your Saturday and start with racing. After the trucks and the modifieds get done, 3 o'clock on True TV, your cup practice and qualifying, leading up to the 205 green flag on Sunday on USA of the Mobil 1301, stage length 70, 115, and 116 because you get that magic mile. Something that's been important to watch with New Hampshire. Thankfully, the forecast does look good right now, so I'm not trying to jinx it or anything. The local sunset time, of course, has been a factor in the past. 2021, Eric Almirola. Local sunset time estimated around 6:45 p.m. based on Bob Hawks' expert weather reporting there. That is something, of course, after stage 1, they do this now. They announce a sunset time at all tracks that don't have lights. 205 green, you run into a little bit of a long race, a little bit of issues. That sunset time maybe starts to come into effect here. Are you thinking that could be something to worry about, or am I just talking a bunch of nonsense here?
Oh, no. You're not talking nonsense because we've already seen it play out. So I would like to not see this play out. And to be honest with you, the drivers don't want to see this play out because they don't want this race shortened because of sunlight. So does that mean that they're going to go out any less aggressive? No, they're still going to drive their asses off. But at the very least, hopefully, that does maybe pull some folks back from being too overly aggressive, because if we see too many cautions in this race, then yeah, obviously the light does become a factor. But Elliot, if that's a thing, why not move it back an hour? Why not move start back just an hour, right? If we're gonna sit here and play whether or not it's gonna get dark, take it out of the equation and move it back an hour. I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, we love the television ratings for sure. There's a group of race fans, I think, that just want every race to be noon on a Sunday. That's how it used to be, so let's do it. It certainly would help the sun time there, but we're not going to see another situation like we did in 2021 where it was will we or won't we, and then with about 40 laps to go, they said, okay, now there's 8 laps to go or whatever, and it gave Eric Almirola the win. Christopher Bell could have another one of those lobster trophies. I think he was running down the 10 car, but just ran out of time because the sun made them run out of time. Having that official sunset time now that everyone can plan toward, that I think the first time they did that was that 2024 Chicago race where they still had the rain delay in the middle. They gave everybody a time to race to. Everybody knows the rules so they can plan around it instead of just, okay, we're going to throw you this curveball. Now there's 10 laps to go. Deal with it. So looking ahead to this weekend in New Hampshire, the Magic Mile. That Magic Mile has messed with some people before, as we talked about. Tires, it should not be nearly as wild as it was at Bristol last weekend. This is the same tire compound used at Bowman Gray, Martinsville, North Wilkesboro, and Richmond. So typical short, flat track type of stuff. Bell, Logano, and Chastain are the most recent ones to do a tire test here. Richmond, we saw the tires were not too big of a factor, but definitely played into the strategy there with, I think it was the 3, the 12, and the 48. Would have been the 23 as well, battling for the win there. Could be something that we hypothesize about and look into this weekend as well.
You want to talk about so there was so many camps. I loved watching Twitter after that race last week because it was just a smattering. It's a cross section of everything that social media has to offer. There was the people that were like, yes, I love this. Give me more, with the Elmo fire emoji, just, going crazy. And then there was the people that are like, I can't believe this is junk. I can't believe these tires wore this much and blah, 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 blah. I never hoped for this. And this is such a bad look for NASCAR. I'm like, what do you want? Like the drivers said they wanted tires to fall off, but they're like, well, we don't want them to fall off that much. Well, this is not an exact science. You still don't exactly know how these things are going to go out and perform. You go out and practice and run 70 laps and can't run 15 during the race. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what everybody wants, but yeah, I think the tires this time around are going to be a little more predictable, and I think the teams won't have to have an extra set rushed to their garage.
That is nice that Goodyear does bring the extras along, though. Certainly helped out. But that's the tough thing to balance, is the normalcy versus the chaos. The normalcy brings more predictable racing, more quote-unquote deserving victors. You can expand this out to the playoff system as a whole, or even to the people who are really upset that Talladega is in the round of 8. People have been upset about that. With the championship rumors of maybe moving to a 3-race, and then 4-race round, and Talladega being in that possible championship round, if that does happen next year. A lot of people crying foul about, why would you have Talladega in that championship round? That is, super speedway racing. NASCAR's Super Bowl is on a super speedway. You're going to have that sort of chaos, and it's just part of the game. And I feel like you kind of had to have had that in the back of your head. I'd be surprised if every crew chief in the garage said, no, there's no way we were expecting that Bristol tire to happen even after practice, because I feel like these guys are smarter than that, and they know how to balance the chaos. And that would be the exact same thing, whether there's tire chaos this week or the sunset time comes into play and you have to flip your strategy or anything like that. The chaos, honestly, I feel like can kind of show, unless it's, getting taken out with the big one at Talladega. That's tough. But these other chaotic situations that you have at least a little more control over, that kind of shows me who's better and more well-balanced and more well-equipped than just an average normal race anyway.
Well, and think about it this way too. I'm just a guy that talks, right? These guys live and breathe this stuff, right? Yeah. And they know, and I'm sure they've done miles and miles of research. They've got every stat point at their fingertips, and they can pull up all kinds of different scenarios. And if it does catch you off guard, then you just didn't do your research well enough. And I'm sure they'll tell you that too. If they didn't realize that the tires are going to fall off that quickly, then they must not have done their full research or whatever. You're right. I think taking it by surprise is one thing, but I think they learned from whatever they just saw and they'll bring it into this coming race just in case something like that happens again.
Certainly got to factor in the chaos there, as you do here as well. But hey, we're just people who talk. And so are all the people on Twitter too. Not the insult, because we're the same way. But in any case, looking at the track, just over a 1 mile asphalt oval, 1.058 miles to be exact. Fits right in that short, flat track niche that we've been talking about so much lately. Primary comps include some tracks we've raced on very recently: Richmond, Gateway, and Phoenix. Secondaries, Iowa, North Wilkesboro, and Martinsville. Seth in the model this week, of course, used all three primaries as well as Iowa as a secondary, as well as New Hampshire stats in the previous next gen and stuff like that. If you want a full look at how the model is broken down, it's top 10 and some of my picks based on it. Article every Friday morning that you can read over on in-betweenmedia.com. So Richmond, Gateway, Phoenix, Iowa, they all make sense. I almost feel like Martinsville should maybe be used a little more because the tracks are shaped almost exactly the same. Martinsville is a much more thin paperclip. New Hampshire, maybe a paperclip that's been used a little more, maybe not quite as perfect, a little wider. Am I crazy on this one? Or do you think Martinsville maybe could be more of a comp to a New Hampshire type? And what do you think about the other comps I mentioned as well?
Yeah, I mean, these short flats, they're not all the same length. They're not all the same banking. I think the discipline that it takes to drive these are all essentially what makes them comp tracks, right? It's not necessarily because they compare 1-to-1. It's just what you have to do to navigate these. And yeah, Martinsville, you could throw that in there too, because, the short, the quarters there are small, just like they are on this one. You have to navigate lap traffic more often. And there's a lot to do on Martinsville that you still have to do at New Hampshire as well. So I think it's a pretty decent comp. But again, most of these short tracks, because of the discipline, it's not a short track, but it's definitely shorter than 1.5 miles, but longer than a half mile.
Yeah, it's tough when you start. I mean, we talk about this with the 1.5 miles, is that there's no more cookie cutter type of track. Even the tracks that are similar are a little bit different. So definitely things you have to do differently between Martinsville, super short track, and New Hampshire, where you at least have a little more room to run, a little better racing surface there potentially. I don't know. I know New Hampshire is a newer track, but who am I to say when it's been resurfaced most recently? One more thing on the tires that TK brought up. Didn't like them adding an extra set mid-race as it rewards those that did a bad job with the original amount. I don't necessarily hate that, but that's one of those concessions of, we understand that you weren't expecting this. That, quote unquote, they did a bad job anticipating wear, even though it made a better race. So giving them that extra set, I agree. It throws a wrench in the strategy, but I don't know if I like that or not. In any case, we'll go to the trends for the week. We can talk about Bristol all night long, but we do have to get to New Hampshire in the bets at some point before Seth throws me off the show. So in terms of trends, qualifying was rained out last year. So only 2 next-gen pole winners based on time trial, as this is the 4th next-gen race here. Nice and easy, 1 a year, 4 years. That gives 4. Martin Truex Jr. is no longer active, so that makes Christopher Bell the only active legitimate pole winner at New Hampshire. Just another feather in the cap for how good he is at the Magic Mile here. Chase Elliott, your all-time average start leader, averaging just over 8th place. Ryan Blaney and Kyle Busch are in the 9s there. Brad Keselowski and Tyler Reddick rounding out the top 5 with starting positions just over 10th. Keselowski leads the active drivers with 4 poles. Kyle Busch has 3, and of course, Christopher Bell's 1 from a couple of years back. In terms of all time, both Penske and JGR tied at 10 poles each here. 6 wins from the pole at New Hampshire overall, but none since 2017. The percentage on that, 11.32%. From the front row overall, not next gen, 18.87%. Top 5, just over 32%. Top 10, just over 54%. So all that does kind of make sense, but it does seem like an abnormally high number on average. Outside the top 10, 45.2% of winners outside the top 10, and 18.87%. So 6 races from outside the top 20 were won, which is more than the wins from pole, which is really surprising. The qualifying, of course, we say qualifying matters. You got to qualify up front, but we've seen more times the chaos and the moving and shaking throughout the race that you guys that start out back, you've got a legitimate shot to make your way to the front.
Yeah, it just proves you can pass on this one. So hopefully that stands true and the tire holds up and everybody can pass each other, because that's the kind of racing everybody wants to see.
Yeah, and that's not even just in the next gen stats, it holds true as well. Next gen pole winners finished 4th and 29th, so a good run there. And then a little further back, last year the 9 car started first and finished 18th. Active New Hampshire winners, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch have done it 3 times. Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano have a pair of wins here. I'm realizing I don't have the stat of where the guys who won started. I think one was in the top 5. The other was kind of in that same range. That was the stat I was looking toward to support my data, but it's not on my sheet here, so apologies for that. 5 first-time winners total at New Hampshire. Logano, Boyer, Newman, Robbie Gordon, Joe Nemechek all grabbed their first wins there. So your Gibbs and Hocevar and Zane Smith and Noah Gragson and all of those fans, you have a shot here. In terms of all-time, Joe Gibbs Racing, 14 wins, Hendrick Motorsports with 9. And it's one of those tracks where, even though we don't race there twice a year anymore, still those veteran drivers are the ones running up front most often. Your series active leaders in top 5s and top 10s, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch. No surprise there. They're probably the 3 start leaders in terms of starts in good cars, that's for sure. Average finish stacks up basically exactly the same too. Kyle Busch a little lower, I guess, but Denny Hamlin averaging a top 10 finish at 9.871. Keselowski's at 10.5. Reddick and Larson both at 11.2. Christopher Bell at 12.2, brought down by, I think, a 29th 2 years ago that we'll chat about a little more. The most recent Cup race where a driver led every lap was here, Jeff Burton in 2000, when they made them put on restrictor plates for this race due to some unfortunate circumstances earlier in the weekend. In terms of overtime, last year there was overtime, but it was the first overtime finish here since 2014. There have been 5 total here. 5 weather or sun-shortened races as well, including Almirola's 2021 win that we talked about. In terms of playoffs, the 4th race of the playoffs, or starting with the New Hampshire wins the playoffs. You should read your sheet right. 11 drivers have playoff race wins at New Hampshire. Logano in 2014, Denny Hamlin in 2012 are the actives. 4 non-playoff drivers have won the playoffs' 4th race. Joe Nemechek, 2004 at Kansas. Brian Vickers in 2006 at Talladega, a day that the Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan, 8 years old, watching his first NASCAR race, will never forget. Tyler Reddick in 2022 at Texas, and just last year, Ross Chastain getting the win at Kansas when he was out of the playoffs. In terms of guys who have won the title after winning the 4th playoff race, Martin Truex Jr. did it in 2017, and then Jimmy Johnson in 2009 and 2016. Had to have been pretty fun this week, all the reminiscing of Jimmy Johnson's career after his 50th birthday. Definitely had some good runs in New Hampshire. And I think I saw a stat as well that playoff races, chase races, whatever you want to call them, that Jimmy Johnson was in, I think he won nearly 25% of them. So they were a team that really knew how to turn it up in the playoffs.
I mean, I've been a Jimmy Johnson fan my entire NASCAR fandom. Yeah, it's been a blast watching him. It was a blast watching him talk about anything at Sonoma, so that was fun. And knowing that we're almost the same age. He's just a little older than me, so he's the old man in the building. But we're very close in age, and that also makes me a huge fan, knowing that he's out there. I don't want to say he's at the top of his game now anymore, but he's definitely still out there having a good time representing us old guys.
Yeah, maybe not at the top of the game as a driver anymore, but doing pretty well as a team owner, as we'll talk about later with Legacy. An important thing to note, of course, you can throw an asterisk mark on the entire race at New Hampshire last year, essentially, because it was the first oval race that they used the rain tires on. Alex Bowman and Kyle Busch didn't get any laps on the wet. Kyle Busch crashed it as soon as he got out on the wet, and Bowman had blown an engine 50 laps earlier, so they weren't even there, basically. But we did use those wet weather tires, so asterisk marks for a lot of guys in the field. This one, though, Rod, this week, I don't think had very much to do with the rain.
No, unfortunately for Ryan Blaney, he was a contender to win last summer at New Hampshire, but finished an asterisk mark 25th. That race, Blaney finished fourth in stage 1. He finished fifth in stage 2 and had the second best average running position at 5.9. But late in the race, lap 291, a restart got him while he was running in second. McDowell, good old McDowell, and then the front row McDowell, not the Spire McDowell, got into him and spun him out, leading to his misleading result. In terms of total speed rankings, though, Blaney was the second fastest on the day. I mean, that was the story of Blaney this year, but last year.
Yeah, for real. And that was the tough part about this race last year. The chaos throwing things in, being a regular season race where guys could still win their way in. Michael McDowell, I think he said as much after the race. He knew that might have been his only shot. You never know how many times you get to run up front during the regular season. He knew that was his shot to try and win an in. Absolutely sends it into turn 1, knocks into Blaney and loses a bunch of spots himself, I believe. In any case, McDowell, of course, did not win that race. Christopher Bell did, and Blaney ends up with a nice little asterisk mark finish on the board because of it. All right, so hopefully no asterisk marks affecting the race this year, and because we'll need them to do pretty well for our betting cards. Let's crack them open in the parking garage props. Man, look at TK mid-show here doing my stats work. I appreciate you picking up my slack. 2024, Bell winning from 4th. 23, Truex won from 2nd. 2022, Bell won from 5th. 2021, Almirola from 22nd, and Brad from 4th in 2020. On average, winning from the top 5, and that's been an even better average than that in the next gen, which is what we look at more often than that. So shout out to TK throwing in some extra work this week. We appreciate it. Impressions of the books, Rod. What did you think this week?
I actually was impressed. I did like a lot of what they were giving us. There was some good numbers out there. They didn't just nuke all of the playoff drivers just to nuke the playoff drivers. I thought there was some intriguing top 10 odds out there. And then, of course, I love the specials. I thought there was a lot of good specials offers. But overall, they came in early, they came in hot, and they came in with good stuff. So I was pretty happy with the books this week.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's one of these tracks where the limited data plus the general scope of the same type of guys winning here, I feel like, did leave some good numbers down the board. And I think maybe 2/3 of my card are replacement props, as we'll talk about in the show tonight as well. So definitely a lot of those, but it's a juicy outright. I've got to go with it. It's where I've got to start for the week. The Christopher Bell outright, 3-1 on Bet365. I think it might have been plus 330 on DraftKings. But either way, a pretty juicy outright, but definitely well worth it here for Bell. Finishes here in the number 20 car. So the 4 years he's been in JGR equipment. First, 29th, first, and second. So that's pretty good. JGR as a whole, of course, dominated the round of 16, led a ridiculous amount of laps, of course, won all 3 races. And Bell has felt that he's been the best car the last 2 weeks, upset that he finished 7th with it at Gateway, and then happy with it, of course, with the win last week. Let's not forget, too, 4 Xfinity Series wins, including last year, and he's the most recent Truck Series winner from 2017. I think the momentum keeps rolling for the 20. We've already seen them rip out 3 straight wins. It certainly could happen again for Chris Bell. I think he brings home another lobster up there in Loudon this weekend.
So Cody called this a long time ago on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Cody has said, I have Christopher Bell circled at New Hampshire. He's going to win at New Hampshire. He's going to win at New Hampshire before we even run at New Hampshire. So he knew this and he called this. And I just jumped the gun last week to call Christopher Bell and ended up winning there. So I stole his thunder, but I do believe that this is definitely a Christopher Bell week. And now, like you said, Elliot, he already's won 3 in a row this season. He's hot now, and he definitely knows that he can win. It's hard to slow JGR down, and it's hard to slow Christopher Bell down right now, especially on a track on which he's been really, really good at. So, yeah, Christopher, I can't argue with Christopher Bell, especially at 3-1. That's such a good number for a guy who we pretty much all agree as an entire industry is going to win this race.
Yeah, that's a good point. If this were like an Xfinity Zillich number on most tracks, or like an Xfinity Allgaier number at Bristol, we'd probably be happy to get a 3-1. So that's the way that we're choosing to look at it this week, and hoping that it wins there. Not the last Chris Bell bet that I have. And like you said, the JGR momentum, we've seen teams and we've seen drivers go on just absolutely unprecedented runs. I don't know that you can rule out JGR winning 8 of the 10 playoff races, and hopefully for them winning the championship. Ford is still 3 for 3. Penske Ford specifically at taking home the Cup championships in the next gen. We know 3 guys in that room who are going to want to change that, and a guy in another Toyota room as well. I like him a lot this week. It's funny because your bets that you threw in the show this week are guys that I either have other bets on or seriously considered. So we're both on the same wavelength here this week, Rod. I just don't have enough faith on this guy in the outright, but let's stop hiding him. Go ahead and talk about Bubba Wallace at 25-1.
So, and I said this on the show too, on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, where I put in the doc, I just hope everybody has a good race, because honestly, if it's not Christopher Bell, then I don't know who it's going to be. I know John is asking about Denny Hamlin in the chat, but I think his team member, his 2311 team member, may have a better shot than Denny Hamlin this week, as crazy as it sounds. But, you win a race in the playoffs, you feel like you're safe, but boy, it just feels like it's been a frustrating couple of weeks for the 11 car. The 23 car, though, not so much, and not so much on this track in particular. Our friends over at iFantasy Race have given us our next-gen average finishes here from this track, and Bubba Wallace has been stellar, except for maybe one race, in the next-gen era. 3rd place in 2022, 8th place in 2023, and then a disappointing 34th in 2024. However, he was involved in a multi-car accident with Noah Gragson and Austin Dillon late in the race, which forced him to retire in a 34th place finish. This was lap 267, where Noah Gragson spun because of the wet and collected Bubba Wallace and Austin Dillon. So, I mean, Wallace was essentially at least a contender car for the most part of the day. Got taken out late. We don't know what we could have saw out of him. We've already seen a 3rd and 8th place out of him on this track. We just didn't get to see him overall. And for Bubba, I mean, this was a disappointing week last week for him, but all things considered, like he was running very well for a long time until he got into it, right? He actually led 12 laps in this race too, but got collected late in that race as well. So if he keeps himself in check, I think he stands a really good shot at contending for a top 5, but those numbers are a little bit not good either. So I'm going to take him just as a complete outright and roll the dice on that.
I really don't hate it at 25-1 either. I've got Bubba's top 10 at plus 105 on Bet365. The way that my full card looks, and you can see it, it's already in the Discord. If you're a member, or go ahead and join, and we'll get you in there as soon as possible. I've got so many placement props, so many top 10s this week, and I don't ever want to say I'm betting scared. And I feel that way about Denny Hamlin too, John, that Denny Hamlin, we were expecting him to run up front last week. It didn't happen. Maybe I'm just forgetting kind of the early part of the race, but I don't remember Denny Hamlin ever really being a major factor in the race. So I'm just a little scared off of him this week, especially when there's so many other Toyotas that have been more consistent, like Bubba Wallace, who's been probably my favorite driver in the playoffs so far in terms of how he's run. He's run as I expected, but also better than I expected at some of these tracks. Ran well last week before getting taken out, and good finishes at difficult tracks. I feel like we're going to see more of the same. Like TK said, we know that the Toyota is running very well in the playoffs. What's 2311 again? They are Toyotas. So definitely like the faith in Bubba this week. More Toyota bets for me as well. I've parlayed together the Christopher Bell top 5 and Chase Briscoe top 10. That's at minus 154 on Caesars. I mean, what more can you say about JGR? Kick button round 1, no signs of slowing down, especially at another short flat. It's important to have similar tracks as ones they've literally just won it weeks ago. Briscoe, 9th place average finish here in the next gen, and his round of 16 was pretty good as well. P1, P2, P9, that includes 127 laps led at Bristol. He did not take his foot off the gas. I like this bet because it gives me some insurance. I talk about Heim insurance in the truck series. This gives me insurance of one of the Hendrick cars going out and running well. A different Toyota, Bubba Wallace going out and winning the race and cashing at 25-1. I get a little bit of insurance there for Bell. And Briscoe, I feel like, is a guy, top 5, top 3 in 2 of those races, but just the top 10 at Bristol gives me a little of insurance there, knowing they're going to run well, but maybe a team that can't necessarily pull off the top 5. Even at a minus money parlay, I'm totally fine with these odds for both of these bets together.
Sometimes you just got to create your own value, and knowing that some of these favorites are favorites for a reason, and favorites because they should be. You do have to kind of get creative if you're going to try to make a little money off of them instead of just betting the outright. So I do like the parlay angle of this, especially on 2 hot drivers, right? Two JGR drivers that have been absolutely crushing it. And all you're asking for Briscoe to do is maintain what he's done already, right? And for Christopher Bell to stay hot. And I think those are not 2 unreasonable things to ask out of both of these drivers. So I very much like this. Yeah,
I mean, even if I didn't trust Briscoe so much, I feel like top 10 is even the low end for how they're running right now. And Bell can run top 5 here in his sleep unless somebody else gets into him. This is the only parlay that I have of the week, but not the only little double stack that I've got. I've got top 10 bets on both of the Legacy Motor Club drivers. JHN at 5-1 on FanDuel. Erik Jones 6-1 on Bet365. There have been a lot of these weeks this year, but this just feels like one of those sneaky Legacy weeks to go up there and have one or both of those guys run pretty well. We saw it a couple weeks ago at Darlington. Not a direct comp, of course, but still recent enough to do pretty well. And JHN on some of the comps pretty solid as well. P8 here last year, of course, in the rain, but it was one of those guys running fairly well. In a P6 at Gateway just a couple of weeks ago. So I feel good about the 42. In the 43, right around this range at New Hampshire in the next gen, 19th, 11th, and 13th. So the last legit race here without the wet, 11th, with a better car, 13th than the 19th a couple years ago. Overall, I'm doing the math here down below here. And he also has a P6 and a P3 in good equipment with Joe Gibbs Racing. So one of those weeks where it just feels like a Legacy week, and we've been celebrating Jimmy Johnson. We know they run well at the track type. We know they have run well recently. I feel like one, if not both of these, are going to cash.
And the numbers that these guys are at right now, for the speed that we've seen, again, sometimes the books are right. Sometimes they're dead on in the fact that they give these long odds to some of these guys that never sniff anywhere near anywhere they're supposed to, right? But these guys have been legitimately top 10 contenders each and every week, whether they finish there or not. And to get them at 5 and 6-1, that I almost feel like that's a hammer bet every single week, because it just feels like even at a coin flip, if you bet this 5 times and it hit one, well, you do the math, but if you hit this 5 times, or even if you hit this a couple times, it pays off down the line. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely a chance worth taking each and every week, because these guys, especially John Hunter, right? That's the one that really makes you feel really good about betting a top 10 each and every week, because he's been looking that solid it just through and through.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this one isn't a parlay, like I said. I have them together because they're both on the same team, but not a parlay. So I only need one of these guys to run well to hit there. I've got more placement props. Let's get to yours first, which I believe is also a squad ride as I go back and look at my other card for a guy who really needs a good run.
Oh, my God, yeah. Josh Berry, top 10, plus 210, courtesy of Hard Rock. I just checked that one. It was still there. It was like plus 220. So you guys have been hammering it down a little bit, so make sure you get in there now. And again, I'm not going to sit here and dazzle you with stats for this one, because there are none for you to dazzle with. I mean, it's Josh Berry has had a rough go of it over the last few races. And I just got done saying how shook he is and how it's been bad. But now playoffs are over. And now Josh Berry can just go out and run a race and try to be a top 10 car without worrying about getting into something, without worrying about getting tangled up in anybody else's mess. And I feel like that might be the best Josh Berry that you're going to see. He finished third here last year. I know that's, you could put the asterisk around the whole race, but he finished third here last year, right? And that's really all you kind of need to know about the potential of a Josh Berry. And that was in the 4 car. That wasn't even in the 21 Wood Brothers car that he's in now. That is in a, you can argue, a Haas, Haas factory, I was going to say, a Stewart Haas car, team that was on the way out. So it just, all of it adds up to where Josh Berry now, the wheels are off. And we did see earlier in the season a 4th place at Phoenix, right? Another mile track. He won at Las Vegas. He had a 6th place run at Kansas, right? So that's a little promising top 10 run there too. And just recently had an 8th place run at Richmond. So he is not incapable of finishing inside of the top 10 in this 21 car. The problem was there was way too much pressure on him once the playoffs started, and a 36th and a 39th place finish and a 38th place finish in the playoffs is what resulted. Let's get back to that 8th place Josh Berry, and we'll all be happy.
Yeah, and I love this bet too. I don't have it at plus 210. Unfortunately, Hard Rock not in Pennsylvania. I have it plus 190 over on FanDuel, but I couldn't agree more. Pressure's off. We've seen it in 2 of the last 3 years, especially in the 4th race of the playoffs. Like I talked about, Tyler Reddick had just been eliminated from the playoffs in the round of 16, goes out there and wins at Texas. Last year, Chastain missed the playoffs because he wasn't able to grab a win. He and Bubba Wallace had the hard luck last year. Busher did too. Lots of hard luck not getting wins last year, but goes out and wins at Kansas. So Bear being able to do it at a place, like you said, ran 3rd, should have run 2nd, but Chase Briscoe had to kill my Bell and Barry exacta bet that I had. Thanks for that, Chase. But in any case, running top 3 with a car that was running much more like Haas factory team than Stewart Haas Racing in its prime last year in that 4 car. I've got a lot of hope in Josh Berry as well.
Yeah, again, like I said, for me, when the pressure's off, sometimes that's when I perform my best. But obviously I like pressure, but sometimes when you've had too much of it for too long, you just need a little breath of fresh air before you can get back into it. So I think that's in line for Josh Berry.
Yep. Take deep breath on that 21 and run a little better. I totally missed the other top 5 I had. Ryan Blaney at plus 125 at Bet365. Hard luck here the last 2 years, like we talked about, getting spun by McDowell in the wet, and then had a pit penalty in 2023. Both of those came while running second, so that would certainly cash the top 5. 4 career top 10s here. Been running just, I don't even know if out quietly well enough, but P4s the last 2 weeks, had him in the clear to advance. Ryan Blaney, out of anyone else in the Cup Series, I may have Ryan Blaney on my card every week the rest of the year, honestly. They've run well. Penske runs well in the playoffs. And Ryan Blaney, just one of the hotter drivers in the garage. I don't know if it'll be a top 5 every week, but I probably will have the 12 on my card in some way, shape, or form every race the rest of the year.
I just hope he stays out of trouble. Like that's the thing with Ryan Blaney. It's almost the Ty Majeski type of a situation where he's capable of running in the top 5 each and every week. It's just what piano is going to hit him on any given day that's going to take him out of the race.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He'll hope to avoid the asterisk this week. One more in the placement props, a guy that was not on my radar at all before this morning, but Anthony in the Discord reminded us about both Todd Gilliland and Justin Haley's great runs here, especially before the rain came last year in this race. Todd Gilliland's top 10 at 10-1 on Bet365. Also got a sprinkle on a 22-1 Justin Haley top 10 over at FanDuel. They were both running great in the rain delay last year. I think Gilliland was in the top 5, Haley in the top 10 in a wear car, which was a shocker. Gilliland ended up holding down, I think it was a 12th. His average running position was P9, though. Came during his best career stretch last year. Remember last summer, Gilliland in that 38 was red hot by their standards. In 12 of the 14 races, kind of in that midsummer stretch, late spring, early summer, he was in the top 17, 12 of those 14 weeks. Funny superstition, the only 2 he finished outside the top 17 were the 2 races that Seth and I were at, Dover, where he crashed, and Pocono, where he either crashed or had a bad finish. So sorry about that, Todd. Much more miserable summer this year. Didn't quite have those kind of consistent runs, but he's got his tracks. I feel like New Hampshire is one of those. We know Indianapolis is one of those as well. He ran 6th as a bright spot in a fairly miserable stretch of races. Like we talked about with Front Row, hasn't been the year that they wanted, but they've got their tracks. You can pick their spots. I feel like Gilliland at New Hampshire in a special pickle car this week could be a nice little tasty treat to add to the card.
Well, I know Cody's pretty high on being in the Gilly gang this week as well. And to be honest with you, again, like we said, the books did a really good job this week of giving us some pretty good odds. And I feel like the top 10s were a little shorter than we would have maybe liked. But I think long shots like this are definitely worth taking because we've seen, and I don't know what it is, but maybe Chevy has taken a little bit of a backseat to a lot. It's because we've seen, RFK run well. We've seen the Toyotas run well. And it just feels like Hendrick obviously carrying the torch for the Chevys. When we see guys like Kyle Larson drop off, when we see guys like Chase Elliott drop off and Bowman and Byron drop off, it does tend to open up spots to some of these teams that we're not used to seeing in the top 10. And on a week-to-week basis by, Todd Gilliland finds his way in the top 10 every once in a while. But yeah, I do. I like this. I like this because he could be that driver that sort of stays out of trouble and finds his way into another top 10 finish here.
Talking about Chevrolets, I did give some thought. I think their manufacturer outright to win was somewhere in the 3-1, 3.5-1 range. I gave some thought to it, but then you look at most of these guys, it's the Toyotas that have a shot, or maybe it's the RFK Fords. And I don't really think outside of maybe Larson that you have a Chevrolet who's really got a good shot at this. So couldn't bet that, even though normally that the manufacturer odds being that long will send up my spidey senses a bit. I'll throw a little bit on it. Hasn't worked out that well for me, so probably good that I'm skipping it this week, especially throwing a lot of top 10s at the board. We got some matchups as well, both on the same guy in a couple of matchups. I really wanted to be on Ross Chastain this week, one way or another. And I feel like the best way to do that in this matchup against Ty Gibbs, they're both at -115 on Bet365, I think. Don't credit me on that now that I say that. I'm not sure. Regardless, I wanted to be on Chastain, and this is my best shot. Gibbs and Bristol, of course, they got along well last week, but typical, Ty Gibbs choked it away at the end. He may not have had the tires to win, but didn't even give himself a shot, missed pit road, and then was probably lucky to get back to 10th there. Thankfully, he did to cash my bet. The one team, we were talking about it earlier, they know they need to turn it on. His round of 16 finishes, 11th, 24th, and 19th. That will not get you through the round of 12, not by a long shot. They know they need to turn it on. And in the next gen, he's been able to pull that off. The last 4 races here for him, P10, P23, and then a pair of P8s. For Ty Gibbs, a 16th and a 27th. So I'm feeling good about Chastain to get his playoffs back on track and certainly to beat the 54.
I mean, you already know how to open up a can when you open up the can with a 54. Somebody tried to argue with me in the show earlier this week and saying that, Ty Gibbs just he was much better. He's so much better. He's always like, no, because you've got to put together a full race. Like if you one can't take care of your tires, but nobody could take care of their tires. Christopher Bell took care of his tires. Smith
Bell and them, I can kind of understand the argument because there were 4 guys that just didn't have the tires at the end. Bell was able, I believe, to throw in a fresh set. But yeah, you taking care of your tires though is definitely a skill you can use even in those sort of situations. But
don't you too, Elliot? Listen, I'm trying to. But no, listen, I fully agree with you because Ross Chastain's still a playoff driver, Ty Gibbs not. And this is an instance where this one team has to do something to get themselves into the next round, and just going out and finishing 15th is not going to get it done. Whereas Ty Gibbs, he's going to Ty Gibbs his way into another piss poor finish, and that'll be fine. So I like this one because I also like Chastain to finish better than somebody else as well.
Yeah, you got it over Austin Cindric. One that I'm not quite as confident in, but if you're going to pick him against a playoff driver, I think Cindric probably is the way to go.
Ross Chastain, 3 for 3 in the next-gen era in beating Austin Cindric on this track. In 2022, Ross Chastain finished 8th. Austin Cindric finished 13th. In 2023, it was a 23rd place for Ross Chastain, but Austin Cindric finished in 25th. And then in the 2024 season, Ross Chastain finished 10th. Austin Cindric finished in 19th. Like we said, it is Ross Chastain's world that he's got to advance into the playoffs. Austin Cindric does not have that same thought process. So, look, 19th for Austin Cindric or Ross Chastain last week. Austin Cindric 30th. Last week or 2 weeks ago, Gateway 24th for Ross Chastain. Pretty bad day. 19th for Cindric, so he got him there. At Darlington, 1 spot separated these two, where Ross Chastain finished in 11th and Austin Cindric finished in 12th. So it's been very nip-tuck for these guys, but I really fully think that Ross Chastain has a lot on the line. This one team has a lot on the line. They need to go out and have a good run, and they're going to do it. So I think a top 10 finish is in line for Chastain, even top 12, and they're going to be good enough to beat Cindric on this track.
Yeah, that certainly could be good enough for sure. In terms of the New Hampshire stats, I mean, we'll go with our old Ankrum argument. If you're going to get hit in the face 3 times, 3 for 3 at beating him, you're probably going to expect it to happen in the 4th time. In the playoff races, Chastain could have finished even better than that. 11th you said. He had to save fuel. They didn't get that car full. He was on pace for anywhere from a P4 to a P7, so even better there. Cindric was running a little better than 30th. They had that late fire, went a few laps down, and nearly got to the point where it was a little shaky on points for the 2 car there, but ended up working out to where he was able to advance. I like Chastain in almost all the facets here. The only thing is we've seen Cindric run way better than expected in the playoffs each of the last 2 years. Probably would have made the round of 8 if he doesn't get crashed to Talladega. And here was able to run well enough to even have an incident in a race in the last race of the round and still be able to make it by 10 points on the cut line for the 2 car, even with a P30. So it's just that sort of what have you done for me lately that maybe would give me the edge to Cindric, but Chastain has it in just about the same way. So I certainly don't hate this matchup at all.
Indeed. All right, where are we going?
Yeah, so I got one more matchup here, and it's Brad Keselowski in that Boston Red Sox car against Tyler Reddick. This is a tough one. Normally, I tell you guys the bets I'm most confident in for a weekend. This is the one I'm least confident in, but I'm still wild enough to go with it. I do have separate bets on both of these guys as well. I like them both this week. But I like both the consistency with Keselowski and the plus money, plus 125 in this matchup. 2 career wins here, a 10.5 career average finish, 5.2 average finish in the 5 New Hampshire races outside of last year where he was P28, didn't quite have a great day. Started in the top 10, but didn't quite work out. In the 3 most recent short flats, a 9.7 average finish for the 6. We saw last week he did all he could do to win, short of stuffing Christopher Bell in the fence, just hit him a little too square on the back, I guess. And they've really nailed the strategy pretty often lately. They are taking the big swings, no pun intended with the baseball card. They are taking the big swings to go out there and try and get Brad a race win. He's almost in a Kyle Busch type deal. He doesn't have the win streak like Kyle Busch did that he was trying to hold on to, but he's a guy that every year it doesn't, that you can have this goal and that goal and want to win this race and want to make it to this round of the playoffs. Arguably the most important thing for these old veterans is stay in victory lane, win a race a year, keep yourself out there as a good competitive driver. That's really what he's looking for. And in terms of Reddick, P6 here the last 2 years, like I mentioned, I'm not discounting him at all. I think this will be a really spirited battle to watch in the back half of the top 10 all day. I'm just taking the 6 over the 45 in this instance.
Yeah, and like I said, how frustrating is it for Reddick, right, to have been as good as he was last season and now on the outside of the cut line looking in, trying to figure out how to get into this. But, Keselowski doesn't have that stress on him. He doesn't have to worry about being perfect. He just needs to go out and run as good a race as he can. And look, we saw last week what that means, right? That means Keselowski looks good and actually runs around the front of the pack for a while. Granted, how often does he finish there anymore? Not quite as often, but I will say that for a guy with none of the trappings that Tyler Reddick comes into this weekend with, we've seen Tyler Reddick get into it far too many times. And I think, taking Keselowski over this is a pretty good proposition.
Appreciate you hopping on board with that one. We got one more Cup Series bet. It's one of your specials, and we'll take a little spin of the roulette wheel to close it out for the Cup side.
Over 7.5 drivers to lead a lap. I love this one. Minus 115. 7 in 2022, 9 in 2023. We didn't even breach this mark last season. But of course, last season was the tire race, was the wet weather race. And so I'm kind of throwing that out as far as into this particular average. But in 2023, we actually saw, and look, there's 301 laps in this, right? We saw Martin Truex Jr. lead 254 of 301 laps. However, there was still 9 drivers to lead a lap in this race. Austin Dillon led 12, Kevin Harvick led 10, William Byron led 9, Kyle Larson led 6, Eric Almirola 4, Ricky Stenhouse 3, Logano 2, Bell 1, right? So that just proves that even though there's somebody leading 250 laps, you can still get to 9 different drivers. And as we pointed out before, this is a playoff race now, right? It wasn't a playoff race last season in July. It is a playoff race now. So you've seen strategy. You've seen people flip stages left and right. All it takes is for a couple of those to happen, a couple lead changes in the front during these pit stops and, some green flag pit stops and you get some lead changes. I think 8 is a pretty good number to hit for this particular race.
Yeah, I feel like you've got me convinced, something I didn't look into this week, but I certainly like it, especially with the playoff strategy that you see. Definitely going to have a hot few guys go for this race and try to get the win. That's it for the Cup cars. We've got a couple of placement props on the truck side, starting with an Xfinity regular this week in the number 16, Rob.
Oh, Christian Eckes. I am so floored that Christian Eckes top 5 is a plus money still, plus 150 for Christian Eckes. When you look just at, the 16 truck rather has been a Hattori truck the last time he was in it, but now it's a Hilgam McAnally truck, which of course is the team that he was in when he was absolutely dominating alongside of Corey Heim in the 2024 season. Christian Eckes and Corey Heim were in the same paragraphs with each other. 15 top 5 finishes, 22 top 10 finishes in 23 races, 4 wins. He only finished outside of the top 10, Elliot, in 1 race did Christian Eckes in the 2024 season, and that was in Atlanta when he had a brake problem in a super speedway race. There's just no way that you're telling me that a guy that finished 15 times in the top 5 in the same type of truck that he's in now can't do it again on this particular track. I wholeheartedly back Christian. I know the trucks haven't been here since 2017, but it doesn't matter. Christian Eckes is one hell of a driver, and he's back where he belongs in the truck series, in my opinion, and is going to tear it up.
Yeah, I really like him getting this extra seat time. I feel like at this point he's going to run most of the rest of the races. I don't know if that's been officially announced, but he's been there the last couple, and certainly a guy who, he didn't have the Xfinity season that he wanted, but he's a guy who has the truck series success, has some success here, maybe not in New Hampshire, but in any case, a guy who is worth the look for the top 5. Experience is one thing that I'm looking forward to. I was trying to tie that in with Eckes. I couldn't figure it out. But Corey LaJoie, plenty of Cup races here. Made his Cup debut here, I think, 2014. And I'm taking him for the top 5 at plus 275 via ESPN Bet. 4 starts in the Truck Series this year. Pair of 5th place finishes, a P9 at Bristol, and then a late issue at Darlington. I think someone put him in the wall when he was running top 10. So, of course, I wish the Truck Series had a top 10. I'd bet this probably an even money minus money. But the top 5 is intriguing enough for me. And I really have no idea how to handicap this race. Like you said, first time the trucks have been here since 2017. It's in a playoff race. You've already got the 2 best guys clinched. I have no idea what's going to happen. So I'm going to go with the guy who's been here many a time since then. I don't know that he has a top 20 on the Cup side, but this isn't the Cup Series. This is the Truck Series, probably where Corey LaJoie belongs as well. And I feel like the 77 getting a top 5 for the 3rd time in 5 starts, worth the plus 275 for me.
Well, I think it says something that neither one of us have outright bets on this particular card, for the show, because it's either Riggs or it's Heim, or, you sprinkle in somebody else that may accidentally win in this one. But it's been Riggs and Heim for the last month and a half, if not more, that have won these races. So they've been just swapping off wins, and it's hard to predict anybody else to win. So top 5s, top Fords, top Chevys, that's the way to make your money. And Corey LaJoie, fully capable of doing it.
Yeah, this is my only truck bet at all. I don't have any sneaky ones hidden behind the show curtain. This is all I've got. You've got an extra top 5, though, Rod, that I don't hate either. I feel like I say that for a lot of your bets. It's so easy to say, oh, this is a good bet, because obviously you know what you're doing, and we're grateful for your expertise each and every week that you're here.
I try. Too bad they all don't cash. But Daniel Hemrick in a coin flip, plus 250 for a top 5 finish for that 19 truck. I just got done telling you all the spectacular things that Christian Eckes did in that 19 truck last year. Well, Daniel Hemrick has actually done not as many, but some pretty good things in this 19 truck this year. 10 top 5 finishes in 20 starts. So 50% of the time he's finishing inside of the top 5. Again, this is a coin flip, and you're getting this at almost 2.5 to 1. I absolutely love it. 75% of the time he's finished inside of the top 10. So that's 15 times. His average finish this year, 8.8. Just got a 5th place last week at Bristol, a 2nd place at Darlington, a 7th place at IRP, a 5th place at Pocono, 4th at Nashville, 4th at North Wilkesboro, 2nd at Texas, 3rd at Rockingham. He won at Martinsville, 5th at Homestead. I mean, these are all not necessarily comp tracks again, because there's not comp track to this, but these are comparable tracks enough to where I think the success will carry through. That 19 truck knows how to find its way to the top 5. Give it to me at plus 250.
Yeah, I love this bet. MHR have run really well this year. Hemrick in a great spot in points, plus 51, and has ran really well in the playoffs so far. The thing with Hemrick in terms of getting to a title, I feel like he's going to need to win one more race, and I don't know if he has it in him, because it's Daniel Hemrick. But his one NASCAR National Series win before this year was quite literally when the brightest lights were on to go for the Xfinity Series title in a late restart. One of those that, even though it wasn't a driver that I was really pulling for, one of those where I remember sitting at the TV like, Hemrick, you got to take this chance, man. This is the chance that you're going to get it done. He did on that night. And a top 5, not too much to ask for at the Magic Mile. Been a fun show tonight, Rod. Appreciate having you on as always. NASCAR Gambling Podcast, the biggest place to go. And, of course, following you at RJ Villagomez, obviously, can get you with all the fun going on over there. Same here. Follow In Between Media on all socials if you like what you see. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Hop in the IBT Racing family if you feel like it. Take a look at the article in the morning where I give you some more breakdown, and you take a look at our betting model. If you're not convinced yet, you're waiting to hop in next year, we'll show you what we got, and hopefully it'll be continued good bets and continued good times rolling on down the back road. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you again next time on the back.